Hello, everybody. In today's video, I'm going to talk about the Great Meme Reset. And I'm putting it in quotation marks on the thumbnail, and that's what that is when I put the bunny ears like that. That's basically the word equivalent of quotation marks. But the reason why I say this is because it's most likely, you know how like TikTok will make like a really, really big trend for something they're trying to do? Then once that time actually comes around, either one of two things will happen. Either they'll commit to it or they won't. And if they do commit to it, it's not going to last long. It's definitely not going to last long. And if they don't commit to it, it's just going to disappear into the void of many things that TikTok tried to do. And the Great Meme Reset is one of those trends that I think is going to be one of those things where even if they do commit to it, it's not going to last long. It's not like YouTube, okay? It's not like YouTube where if they truly latch on to a trend, it will stay around for a lot longer. I mean, it will still end, but it will stay around for a lot longer, generally speaking, on YouTube. Whereas on TikTok, the most you're going to get is like 3 days for people who are constantly doing it, you know? And speaking of this reset, it mostly has to do with the 2010s. Notice how this reset very, like, rarely ever mentions, like, all the memes that are associated with this time period or all the memes that people don't want to bring back, or all the memes from the 2000s or the 1990s, because yes, the original generation, or the generation that got memes popular in the first place, was actually in the 1990s. That's why when they talk about the beginning of memes, they always talk about the late 1990s and the early 2000s, because the late 1990s is the one that started it all, and the early 2000s is what made it go into the mainstream, you know? So it was basically just the same batch, but in a different generation, you know? And then it got bigger and bigger and bigger to what it is today. Sorry if I'm glitching out. My phone is not exactly the best, but still. Anyway, I tell you this. So what are you gonna do? Now what? You know? What is this meme reset going to do for you? You know? If you ask me, a lot of the people who are doing this are like those people who look at 2016 as the greatest year ever. Like, literally anything could have happened in the 2010s and they'll immediately say it was 2016. Like, for example, did you know that the end of the world is gonna come thing was actually in 2012 and not in 2016? Did you know that the height of the fidget spinner trend was in 2017 and not in 2016? Did you know that the song Fireflies came out in 2009? Not even in the 2010s? Like, basically, they're just associating anything pre-COVID in the 21st century as basically, oh, it was 2016. Like, I wouldn't even be surprised if they're gonna try to say that 9/11 was in 2016 or something. You know? Because they're looking at everything with rose glasses on. You know? In fact, I would say it's an actual fact. I would say 2016 was one of the worst years of the 2010s. And no, I'm not just talking about politics or religion. I just mean in general. That was the big thing, you know? Like, 2016 was the universally hated year. But I think the reason why is because the current generation now looks at it as simpler times. Back then, that was more complicated times, you know? Like, today, we look at it as, oh, it was such a good time. But for people in the time, it sucked. Now, I know this sounds a bit old when I'm going to say this, but you at least need to hear it. Every generation glazes a certain time period, okay? The boomers do it. The boomers are most famous for it. But the boomers do it. Gen Xers do it. Millennials do it. Our generation obviously does it. And I bet you Generation Alpha will look at this decade and probably do the same thing. You know? But, yeah, there's just nothing really to gain here. You know? It's really just a meme. It's very, 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 very hard to bring older memes back. But I do think some meme formats are probably going to be brought back from this, at least temporarily, you know? Or if they are going to be brought back for a long period of time, however that long may be, if that does get resurrected, hopefully it's just the memes that are like everybody like associates with that time period, that everybody can like modern day use that format, you know? Because there are some formats that from those time periods that are, you know, still used. But why 2016? Why not 2014? Why not 2012? You know, why not 2019? You know, why does it have to be specifically 2016? Like, I get it, it was a big thing at its time, but here's the thing about that specific year. Nobody really liked it. Yeah, they were like, oh yeah, I like this bullshit. If you actually liked the year, you didn't exist, pretty much. Or you were like a newborn. Like 2016 is 10 years ago, at least time of recording. And it will be farther and farther away. And one day it will be so far ago that nobody can relate to it anymore. Right now that's not exactly the case because the generation that relates to it the most is still alive. And yeah, if you were a boomer or Generation X or millennial during that time, you probably didn't really like that year. And even if you do, like, oh yeah, it was a good year, da 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 da. Just remember, most people were not having a good year back then. How do I know that? Because I was alive back then. I can tell you, I was not having a good year back then. A lot of you were in one digits. Okay, so was I. But the difference between you and me is most people around the world and where I lived at the time were just having a really bad year. And again, it's not just because of politics or religion. It was also the sports. It was also the weather. It was also nature. It was also just things that were going on at that time. You know? People were a lot more angry and reactionary than they are today. Like, today we think of people as, like, being really angry and reactionary. But in 2016, everybody was angry at something. Okay? Like, it didn't matter what it was. It made every year prior and every year after look like a joke. Okay? So somebody was angry about something. Alright? That's just how it was. And now, I'm not saying that there wasn't any good things to come out of 2016. Obviously there was. But not a whole lot, you know? Just enough to be, like, nostalgic about it, but not enough to say that, yeah, that was actually a good year, to be honest. It wasn't. You know, I would say 2020 is actually a better year, because at least you had a pandemic to worry about, you know? At least you got to probably just stay at home and chill, and just probably do whatever. But, like, 2016, you didn't have that at all. You know? Like, that was not a good year to be alive. And people often associate it as, like, the best year of that decade. No. If you ask me, the best year of that decade was either 2012, 2014, or 2019. Maybe even 2017 if you want to include that fidget spinner trend. Because that, you know, obviously if you look at the evidence, 2017 was the height of the fidget spinner trend. If you are aware of the 2010s, like I think I said earlier in this video. But yeah, this meme reset, it's mostly just a 2010s nostalgia thing. And Gen X had a old saying that I was going to say, but I got a little bit busy from everything else. They have the saying that everybody hated the 80s in the 80s. Basically saying that the 80s was the worst time ever in the 1980s, but today it's viewed as a good time. But basically, that saying got developed right around the year of 2000 because, or got popularized at least, because, well, the millennials were hosting like these weird 1980s parties. And don't get me wrong, Gen X was doing that too at that time. But it was mostly the millennials that were doing this to an extent. And so because of it, you had this wave of people who are actually from the 1980s that are like, oh no, the 1980s was one of the worst times to ever be alive. And then, they did the whole things with the 1990s and the 2010s. And now they're going to like the 2000s and 2010s this decade. Can you imagine somebody being nostalgic for this decade in like the 2030s or 2040s? Or even beyond that? Hell, maybe even generations that are like 6 or 7 generations away from me, 6 or generations after this generation was long gone, and they're like, oh yeah, that sounds so cool. They were having COVID, remakes, and they were so good because they had a crashing economy or something. Da 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 da. In whatever English becomes, if English is still a thing at that time, if they're speaking English, And it gets really weird. And yeah, this meme reset just looks like a trend that most people will forget. And I'm betting you there's going to be somebody like 10, 20, maybe even 30 plus years from now, whoever knows how long, many decades probably, where they're like, oh, you remember the great meme reset? Oh, da, 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 da. Like it's one of those people who just won't let go of a certain time period long after it's gone and long after its relevancy was around. When it's no longer relevant anymore. Because we live in a time where the memes are more based off of what is currently going on or what is currently happening. So trying to set memes to a generation that they're not a part of, that they don't understand because they weren't around back then, is like trying to get somebody today back into like the 1970s, Like, yeah, the 1970s probably was a great time for you, Probably was a good time for you. But I don't think I was alive back in the 1970s, my guy. Okay? Like, that was a long time ago. We have to let it go. As one wise man once said, let it be. Let it be. By that, I mean it was the Beatles. But still, not wise man, wise men. Mini man. And yeah, the great meme reset is here, and that's just how it is. And yeah, the New Year's is here. So happy New Year's, I guess. Regardless of whatever year you're watching this on. This is literally on the first day of the year, this specific year, that I'm recording this on. Which is on the day that I posted this on. Which is 2026 AD. And yeah, the great meme is reset is here. So now what? Now what? Now fucking what? Look at me. I'm a physically disabled person. You have no excuses to be going, oh, but we need to be nostalgic. Ah, because they took something away from us, even though we never had it in our entire fucking lives. Oh, yeah, just something that never happened, but we're gonna say it happened because, things now instead of things then, you know? It's like they were never even around during that time. You know what I mean? Like the whole point of 2016's entire existence after the ball dropped was we hated that year. Like, why are you all of a sudden just getting all goody with this meme reset bullshit? But honestly, yeah, I would like some basic meme formats to return. But outside of that, yeah, just leave it the fuck alone. We need to let them rest, okay? They're a part of its time. Some trends just need to die so others can not just live, but also give for the next generations when they die, you know? And then goes on when those generations die as well, and then so on and so forth. And regardless if those trends become bigger or smaller, time will tell. Anyway, that's all I got to say. And what do you think about this great meme reset? I don't know if you're watching this at the time of this, or if you're watching this at however many years, maybe decades or centuries of whenever this great meme reset happened. But here we are. And that's all I got for today, so I'm going to end the video. But yeah, that's my question. What do you think of the great meme reset? Anyway, that's all I got. See you later. And just remember, stay ugly.